Hello, learners. I welcome you to the third lecture of week 2. In this week, we are discussing environmentalism and political ideologies. And today, we will talk about eco-anarchism. As the term itself suggests, that eco-anarchism is a kind of combination of anarchist position and ecologist position. Now, one thing which we need to understand that this blend between ecologism and anarchism can be called one of the most smooth blend. Why I'm saying it? Because if you remember when we were talking about eco-socialism, so we observed that the productivist variety of socialism somehow doesn't align well with ecological concern. Same is the position of capitalism and eco-capitalism. Why? Because the profit-seeking nature of capitalism doesn't align with ecological concern. But when we talk about eco-anarchism, so anarchist position talks about a kind of society which would be based on self-sustained community. It rejects centralized authority, it rejects state, it rejects mass production. So, and what it prefers? It prefers small scale production, self-ruled communities, and it believes that this kind of setting would lead to individuals' freedom and dignity. So we can see that this position is very well can be aligned with ecological position. And that's why I'm saying that it is one of the most smooth blend. In today's lecture, we are going to cover these various aspects. We'll talk about definition of eco-anarchism. We'll talk about rise and growth of eco-anarchism, social ecology, eco-anarchist concept of decentralized community, concept of biorealism, and also its critique. So, as I said in the beginning, that eco-anarchism can be defined as a branch of anarchism, which is spatially concerned with ecological issues. It can also be defined as a branch of ecologism, which proposes an anarchist solution to ecological crisis. Eco-anarchism emphasizes living harmoniously within our home, and it includes our family, local community, and the earth as a whole. And it opposes basically all forms of domination. So, eco-anarchism as an ideology emerged from a combination of anarchism and ecologism. So now it becomes very, very important to understand that what is anarchism? Anarchism is a political ideology that is critical to all institutions, leading to authority, domination, and control in human relations. So it opposes what? It opposes authority, domination, and control in human relation. And it believes that abolition of a state and centralized industrial economy. It is essential for protecting individual liberty and dignity. So if we want to protect individuals' liberty and dignity, we need to abolish state and centralized industrialist economy according to eco-anarchism. So it advocates for a kind of stateless society, small self-ruled community. The basic anarchist positions can be summarized as it is anti-authority, it is anti-power, and it is anti-hierarchy. So this is the basic anarchist position which rejects authority, which rejects centralization, and it talks about self-ruled communities. Now we will talk about eco-anarchist position. So eco-anarchist position is what? It is anti-capitalism and it is anti-authoritarianism. What it claims is argue that ecosystem collapse is due to authority, hierarchical ordering, and centrism. So it says that if we really want to protect environment, the initiative should come from communities. It fully opposes state-controlled environmental policies. It gives priority to sustainability over industrial growth. It says that what do we need? We need to protect nature for future generation. We need to protect ecological diversity. And most importantly, it talks about polluter accountability. This is very important. It says what? That we humans have polluted the planet. And if we have polluted the planet, we need to come forward to take up the responsibility. We should not wait for any state or any other kind of agency to take charge of this thing. We should take up the responsibility, and we should work very efficiently to protect environment. So it sees human beings as the agency for protecting environment. It also talks about sustainable food production, resource recycling, and also voluntary population control. So you see, it is very interesting. It says what? That when we are seeing environmental degradation, it is due to population growth also and due to mismanagement of resources. Both are the factor, and we need to work on both factors. And who has to work on that? It has to be the communities led by people, not any state or any centralized authority. It talks about population control, but it talks about population control in terms of voluntary population control. So it is based on scientific ecological knowledge. Now, if we try to trace the roots of ecoanarchism, we can trace its root in the philosophy of 19th century anarchist thinkers like Henry David Thoreau, Leo Tolstoy, Alcee Reclus, and Peter Kropotkin. Thoreau is a 19th century thinker who is associated with transcendentalism. It was basically a 19th century American philosophical movement that believed in the natural goodness of people and nature. It believed that people and nature, they are basically good. Whenever we try to control them externally, we do what? We violate their goodness. So if we really want to protect that goodness, what is required? That can be done only when people are self-sustaining and free. So it valued individualism, independence, and spiritual connection with nature. Another very important name is Alcee Reclus. He was also a 19th century French geographer and anarchist, and he's also considered as forerunner of bioregionalism. He believed that the large-scale societal laws, which are designed with the objective of political and economical gains, actually they are responsible for disrupting human harmony with nature. And it has led to the domination and abuse of nature. So basically, Reclus is saying what? That large scale societal laws are responsible for abuse of nature. He endorsed nature conservation and says that humans must not only preserve the environment, but they should also take direct action. He advocates direct action to repair the damage they have caused. It is not sufficient that we'll start talking about conserving or preserving nature. We need to take some radical step. And therefore, he says that humans have to come forward to abandon authoritative and hierarchical state institutions. And they need to learn that how can they live in harmony with nature. Another very important name is Leopold Koher. He is a 20th century thinker. In his work, The Breakdown of Nations, he also described the large-scale state governance as the very cause of social unhappiness and advocated for small scale local leadership. He presented a critique of cult of bigness. He said what? Everything, whatever is big is not beautiful. Large level production, mass production, big industry, big state. So he says it is this cult of bigness. He was very critical to that. And it is very interesting. It is this critique of cult of bigness later on led the path for E.F. Schumacher's very well known work, Small is Beautiful, where he critiques industrial economy for depletion of environmental resources. Now we will talk about social ecology. Uh, this approach is given by Murray Bookchin in his work, Our Synthetic Environment. He addressed the environmental concern and he argued that anarchism and ecological principles are deeply connected. And it was Murray Bookchin who coined the term social ecology. Here we need to understand that social ecology is an approach which emphasizes the interconnectedness between socio cultural, political structures and environmental degradation. It says that these issues are deeply interconnected. And if we really want to resolve environmental crisis, we need to understand these deep interconnections. And we need to transform the existing socio-economic structures and political structures. So, Bookchin underscores the interconnectedness of social, political, and ecological system, emphasizing how human interactions shape and are shaped by their surrounding. Social ecology argues what? That environmental problems are fundamentally social problems which are rooted in hierarchical system. It further says that domination of nature stems from human hierarchical structure. So, if we are living in a society which is based on hierarchy, where there are groups which are related to each other in hierarchical relationship, so it would definitely lead to a kind of destruction of environment or a relation of domination with environment. Thus, removal of hierarchical structure is essential to protect ecology. Bookchin believed that the true social stability could only be achieved through ecological balance. So, social ecology basically focuses on systemic and structural factors responsible for environmental degradation and advocates for social transformation as the key to ecological protection. So, here you need to understand that, like when we talk about eco conservatism, it emphasizes a lot on conservation of the environmental resources, protecting environment. But what social ecology say? It says no, we need to understand how have we reached this situation. What are those political structures? What are those social structures which are responsible for that? And we need to transform that. Unless and until we go through the process of social transformation, we cannot deal with ecological crisis. Now we will talk about the framework of ecoanarchism. It says that how can we create a new kind of society which will be in alignment with environment or which will be in alignment with nature. So this is the framework. The first thing is that who will be the actors for bringing this kind of change? So it says this should be humans. Now, what kind of human? Who are rooted in a specific ecosystem. So all initiative have to come from human beings. Second, what kind of processes are required to bring this kind of change? So it says that we need to build non-hierarchical relationship. What is very important when it says that we need non-hierarchical relationship, it doesn't only say that this non-hierarchical relationship should be among human beings. It says non-hierarchical multi-species relationship. And this relation should be based on mutual aid, solidarity, and decentralization. Second, it emphasizes on oppositional direct action to resist socio-ecological destruction and dismantling the infrastructures of capitalism. And third, it says that we need to desert capitalism and the nation state. Now, the third thing, what kind of institutions it talks about? Obviously, it rejects nation state, so it emphasizes the need of creation of autonomous spaces, that is communes based on direct democracy. So this is broadly the eco-anarchist framework. Now we will talk about two very important concepts. Eco-anarchism, as we have seen in this eco-anarchist framework, talks about a kind of decentralized society, and it also emphasizes on bioregionalism. So now we'll try to understand that what is the eco-anarchist model of decentralized society and what is the concept of bioregionalism. So eco-anarchism emphasizes the need to shift the power from centralized government to or corporation to local. It argues that when we will transfer this power, when we will shift this power, it will ensure that the power and decision making are controlled by self-sustaining autonomous villages or communes that will operate on principle of direct democracy. So first thing it says that power need to be shifted from centralized government to local community, and these community will work on the principle of direct democracy. Second, it focuses on creating alternative to existing centralized system. Like it talks about community-led agriculture, it talks about renewable energy projects and cooperative businesses. Third, when it talks about eco-anarchist community, so it has one thing in mind, that these communities should be self-sufficient. And in order to be self-sufficient, they must be engaged in different kinds of activities and professions, which will include agriculture, craftsmanship, small scale industry, to ensure self-sufficiency of the community. Therefore, Murray Bookchin says what? That this kind of decentralization would lead to a more intelligent and more loving use of the environment. So if we'll have a decentralized society, that will lead to a more intelligent and more loving use of the environment according to Murray Bookchin. Now we will talk about second concept, that is bioregionalism. Basically, bioregionalism talks about what? That there is a very deep connection between the people and the land. And we need to understand that relation. We need to respect that relation between the people and land. It urges that individuals should live closely with their environment. They should understand its limits and rhythms and need to align human activities with ecological realities. This is very important. You see, when we try to find out the nature of human activity or the development project, we do not take into consideration the ecological reality. So it says that when we are designing human activity, it should be in alignment with ecological realities. So it seeks to create sustainable communities that flourish in harmony with the earth rather than exploiting it. So its relation should be of harmony with the earth, with the environment, not that of exploitation. Reckless argued that there is a secret harmony that exists between the earth and the people, and when imprudent societies let themselves violate this harmony, they always end up regretting. So, what Reckless is saying, there's a harmony between the land and the people who are living on that land. We need to respect that harmony. If we somehow try to damage that harmony, there would be a situation where we are going to regret this. Bioreasonalism can also be seen as the politics of deep ecology, which emphasizes on a deeper connection between human society and ecology. And it advocates for a radical societal transformation to address the ecological crisis. Bioreasonalism sees itself as offering a way in which we can return to the land and replant ourselves again in the natural world. This is very important. They say we have disconnected ourselves with the land. And if we really want to protect environment, and in fact, if we really want to protect ourselves, we need to develop that relation again. We need to replant ourselves. So, in the words of Kirkpatrick Sell, we must become dwellers in the land if we are to resolve the ecological crisis. Any piecemeal change, any fragmented approach, that cannot solve the situation. We need to start once again as dwellers in the land. We need to relish that relationship with the nature. Only then we can resolve ecological crisis. Now we'll come to the critique part. Critics have argued that eco-anarchism's too much faith in individual agency may be problematic. They have expressed their doubt on anarchism's potential to bring the change. There are many voices within green movement who say that government is the agency through which organized pro-environment actions can be taken. What is their argument? That in the present time, when we are seeing that ecological crisis has reached its peak, so here we need some kind of centralized mechanism to deal with this problem. And what can be that centralized mechanism? That could be the state. So they do not see state as a kind of obstruction in this path. They say state has the potential through which it can take pro-environment steps. So therefore, they see this anarchist stand that we need to dismantle state with a kind of apprehension. They argue that dismantling or weakening of government may give free hand to pro-industrialist by weakening the control mechanism. This is very important point. Why? Because eco-anarchists consider what? That if we will dismantle state or centralize the structure, automatically people will choose what? Eco-friendly way of living. But the thing is that it is not necessary. So critics say there may be a possibility if you are weakening the state, what is going to happen? Those who are pro-industrialists, they may be more free now because now there would not be any kind of regulatory mechanism. So another critique is of bioreasonalism. Though critics argue that bioregional narrative needs appreciation as it respects cultural diversity, but their argument is that it may lead to a kind of narrow framework. Why? Because they argue that bioregionalism may encourage nativism, xenophobia, and racism. Now, why it can encourage these kind of tendencies? So, you see, bioregionalism says what? That there's a land and the people who are living on that land, they have a close bond and they have a kind of harmonious relation with that land. So there may be a possibility that people will start saying, this is my land and we know the spirit of this land, and therefore if outsider will come in this land, they may somehow damage the purity of this land. So that in that case, what is going to happen? Tendency of localism, tendency of nativism may become very strong tendencies. So some critics even argue that bioregionalism shares certain similarity with the right-wing ecology movement of fascist Germany, which we had discussed that based on blood and soil policy. Joseph P. Dudley states that the emphasis on localism has been criticized on the ground that it can lead to economic autarky, political isolationism, and cultural parochialism. And there is also a problem that it may lead to a situation where it will be very difficult to address global environmental problems effectively, because we are emphasizing so much on local initiative, but there are issues which need global attention. So this may also be problematic. So these are the major critiques of eco-anarchism. This critique mainly can be divided to two parts. One is the critique of the biorealism concept, and another is the critique of its suggestion that we need to dismantle state. There are critics who say this kind of solution is neither feasible nor desirable. So these are some of the references that I have used in lecture, and you can use these references for your further reading. Now, activity question. Firstly, you have to discuss what is social ecology. I expect from you that you should go through Murray Bookchin's article on social ecology, and after reading that, try to answer that. Second is define bioregionalism, which we have discussed in detail. And third question expects you to think critically. How would you rate eco-anarchist solution to ecological problem in terms of feasibility? This is very important. You see, here you have to apply feasibility approach. The kind of society eco-anarchism talks about may appear very hopeful, but in the present time, is it feasible? This alternative way of living which it suggests, can it be feasible? That is the perspective which you have to use when you are trying to answer this question. So, thank you, learners. We have discussed different aspects of eco-anarchism in today's lecture. We try to understand that what is the meaning of anarchism, now what are the key points of eco-anarchism, then what is deep ecology, how deep ecology is associated with eco-anarchism, and we also discussed the concept of decentralized society and bioregionalism. I hope this lecture would help you to understand eco-anarchist position. Please go through the lecture, and if you have any doubt, any query, feel free to post your queries, your doubts in the discussion forum. Thank you for joining the lecture.